is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is brand new stuff from Marty Friedman. Maybe not a brand new song, but a brand new version of it. That is White Worm from his BAD M.F. live release. And on the line right now, we have the guitarist of that song, and you probably know him from another band or two or three that he's performed in before. He is a legendary player. He is Marty Friedman. Marty, how are you, man?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
Excellent. Well, Marty, I got to tell you, man, it's been 20 years since you left Megadeth. It's been, 35 years since you've been playing guitar. And it almost still seems like people, at least over here in the States, still have not figured out exactly what you're doing and what is going on with you, man. You're on your 14th solo record, I think I saw. And yet there's still people that do not realize that you've been doing a whole lot, man. So first and foremost, as a fan, I would like to say congratulations on a continued career. But secondly, I'd like to ask, why do you think it is that the U.S. market just does not understand where you have been, at least for the last 20 years?
Well, I don't know how true that is. I mean, of course, a lot of people probably thought I fell off the map when I moved to Japan 15 years ago.
Sure.
And there's a certain percentage of Maniac fans who have followed me and supported me all throughout that time. But for the most part, I've concentrated a lot of my efforts in Japan and done so much more in Japan than I've done in other countries. So that would explain why a lot of people just don't know what's going on. But that's all good. I have been touring consistently in America and all over the world, especially for the last 8-9 years. So I'm going on tour right now, starting January. I'm going to be all through the United States, and tickets are selling really good. And so people know, but if you're out of sight, out of mind. So you really have to kind of keep cultivating any place that you want people to show up at your shows and people to know what you're doing. So I've been doing that kind of religiously. Every time I release an album, I do as much touring in the U.S. as I can. And it's all been great. I mean, we're about to do the best tour we've ever done. And just looking forward to every single show we're going to do in America.
Sure. Now, on the last release, when you did, I believe it was Wall of Sound, the tour... Well, it was, at least for me, and I am not a guitar guy per se, but the tour itself got probably the best reviews that I can ever remember hearing. I know John, who's with us here, went to the show and said that it was absolutely like one of the most mind-blowing shows he'd ever seen. For you, did you come out of that tour feeling like you had really, set the bar higher than you ever had before?
Well, thank you very much, John, for that. I appreciate
Welcome.
that. It's every time just seems to get better and better, and this lineup has been solid for a long time. I've got the same people in my band for a long time, and it's really like a family, and that's why I wanted to record the live album in the Wall of Sound tour, because not only the reviews have been great, but I really haven't followed that end of it so much. I just know that it feels really good to do, and the band outshines me every single night. I mean, it's really great to be in a band where people may come to see me, but they leave talking about my band, and that's how I want it to be. And I just thought the Wall of Sound tour was great. The Inferno tour was great, and we're still literally in the middle of the Wall of Sound tour, even though I've released a live album. It's just a joy to do. It's so much fun, and a lot of energy comes from us, and we get a lot of energy, and we're loving it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw the show in Cleveland. I got tickets to the upcoming Cleveland show. I mean, it is just an awesome stage performance. Something I wanted to clarify real quick. I mean, you had said you've been touring the U.S. for a while. When they were releasing interviews and stuff like that for the Inferno tour back in 2015, some of the stuff said that it was your first U.S. tour since 2003. Is that accurate, or was that just them blowing crap out of proportion?
No, that's real. That whole Inferno tour was kind of like to reintroduce me to America and Europe. I had toured Europe on my other albums and stuff like that, but I really haven't done anything in America for a long time before Inferno, and hadn't released any of my albums in America either. So I was very, very happy to have a label that kind of convinced me to release albums in America. I wasn't even planning to. My plate was so incredibly full in Japan that I just was like, well, America is on the back burner. I mean, I'd love to play there, but I'm just too busy in Japan. But American label came all the way to Japan, had meetings with me in my house and with my Japanese record label. And they're like, look, there's a renewed interest in what you're doing, what you've done. And a lot of the younger bands are citing you as an influence. If you really want to do anything in America, now would be the time. And so, I believed them, and I made the album Inferno with that in mind. It wasn't a very Japanese themed album. It was very much an album focused on the whole world, and I did like 70 shows on the Inferno tour, and that kind of got me back into touring places other than Japan, and I'm just loving it.
That's awesome, man. That actually, there was a couple follow-up questions that you just answered, but I mean, here in America, you're kind of known as, obviously, for people that don't really pay attention, the guy from Megadeth, or, a term that you're not really a fan of, a shred player. These last two records have really been, two of the more aggressive albums that you've put out, especially Inferno. I mean, that's a heavy, heavy record. Do you think that kind of being back in the States a lot more is kind of like pushed you in that direction a little bit, just based on the crowds you're seeing and the types of fans that you're interacting with?
Maybe indirectly. I'm definitely conscious of what people want to hear from me. You know what I'm saying? If you want to make a record for yourself, that's great. If you want to make a record for everybody, that's great too. If you want to do something for both, meaning I want it to be exactly what I want my music to be, but I also want it to be something that people who are fans of mine not only expect but are looking forward to, so it's kind of like I have to fit both of those criteria, which is really quite difficult, but that's my goal. And I'm known for playing aggressive music, and I'm also known for having the very romantic, sappy side as well to contrast it. And that's pretty much what I've evolved into. And hopefully the latest albums have shown that in its best light, hopefully.
Definitely. Now, do you think that you are a little bit pigeonholed in America as strictly, I would say, like a speed metal player? And if so, I mean, do you think that's something you can ever shed here in the States, considering, U.S. audiences aren't, I would say, as open-minded as audiences are overseas to stuff, the type of material that you do?
That's a good question. And, anybody who's heard any of my material in the last 10 albums or so will know that it's much deeper than what you described there. But still, there's no possible way to control what the listeners think about you, what they feel about you, and it's all good. If they like it, if they like something I've done in any era of my career, it's fantastic. I'm all for it. And if they follow what I'm doing now, that's the best. That's what I like the most. But I still appreciate any fans from any era of my career. And what can you say? Most of the I believe that when people listening to me, let me get this straight. I believe when people are listening to music and enjoying music, it's not as much the content of the music itself, but what's going on in their lives, to which that music is the background music too. Obviously the artist cannot control those things. And, think about it. You think of your really favorite songs, the favorite music of your entire life. And it definitely brings back certain memories and certain feelings. And those things definitely overshadow, well, this song is in G flat and it's a 185 tempo and all
right.
all the content, it's all about, well, this is when that chick blew me off and I wound up finding a better girl the next day, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Those
Sure.
are the things that are connected to the songs. And obviously you can't control those things, but musically, of course, I would love everybody to know my most recent thing, and that's why I'm touring it, and that's the majority of what I play in my set. It's pretty much recent stuff, and but of course, and I've always wanted people to just enjoy anything, so it doesn't have to be the newest thing that they like, and I can't control what they think. As long as they enjoy themselves and have a good time at the show, it's all good.
Excellent. Now, Marty, the band that you have that plays on One Bad MF Live, and has been playing with you for a while now, and these guys are as good as anybody. I mean, certainly from a technical standpoint, they're amazing. For you, when you were assembling the band to play with, what was more important to you, their technical ability or their personability, or both?
Well, this is a really good question, and I'm sure anybody who's put together a band will be able to relate. And I've had such great members in my band over the years. The criteria is like super high. My music is not easy to play, and it takes a certain type of personality to play it the way it needs to be played. And it's not that it's all that difficult to play. It's just there are a lot of really unusual things to remember, and a certain kind of aggression and touch that's needed. I'm sure there's a lot of musical scholars who could write it all out note for note and explain it.
Right.
That's not what I want. I want people who are rock gods. I want people who, when you look at them, that they don't have a day job at the bank. I want you to look at the people and that the only thing these people could be doing in their lives is being a rock god. And on top of that, then they have to have the ability to not only play my music the way it was done, but to add something that I think is very cool to it. And these criterias make it really, really difficult to find people who are able to do what I want. But I've always had great people in my band, and this band is probably the most chemically perfect band for what I'm doing, and the longest without any member changes, and the most you'll see when you see us play. Or if you've heard One Bad M.F, I mean, they totally outshine me, and it just feels like a group, and it's more important for me to have a group mentality than a bunch of really good musicians backing up a soloist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
When you see us play, it's a group, it's a band. It's not just here, watch Marty play and watch these guys hold down the fort for him. It's not like that at all.
Sure.
Especially on this new tour that we're just going to start in January. We've added so much stuff to the set list, and even more than before, you'll see the great showmanship and abilities of my band. So I'm looking forward to showing those guys off.
Sure. Now let me ask you about one guy in particular, Jordan. Is he still with you, or because he's obviously also out there with Rat? What's his status?
Oh, he's in my band, and
okay.
We're not on tour, all year long.
Sure.
So there's a lot of stuff that he does that when we're off tour, he does all kinds of things. So he's definitely in the band, and you can definitely hear him on the live album big time. And
absolutely,
he's got a really big presence on this new tour of mine. So looking forward to showing him off too.
Sure. I
gotta say, Marty, real quick side note here, because I did see the show. You are correct. I mean, the stage presence of the band is absolutely phenomenal, and it's not just you standing there ripping off these solos and guys behind you hanging out. When I found out that Jordan had joined Rat, I'm a Rat fan and all, but it just knowing what he can do and having seen him play with you, I was like, they got that guy's playing in Rat. It almost felt to me like it's like, okay, Eddie Van Halen joined Green Day. You know what I mean? It was kind of crazy. So,
well, he's a god, and whatever he wants to do, I'm 100% behind. And him in my band is a perfect thing, and he could probably play in any band he wanted to, and hopefully he will go on to do a lot of great things, and I'm sure he will.
Awesome. Now, this is not your first live record. You've obviously done them before, but it was not done in this fashion. The other one, or ones, I should say, you've done it where you've recorded a couple nights and picked the best performances. And I know in other press that you've done for One Bad MF, you've said that, this is more of like an homage to, the live records that you grew up with. Having done a live record both ways, this one's recorded in one night. If you fall on your face, you fall on your face. It's what's getting put out type of a thing. Do you now have a preference, or are you still kind of leaning towards the way you did this one because that's how you grew up?
Well, I'm not sure of the process of how people did records when I was a kid. But doing it both ways, maybe culling the best performances from like 5 or 10 shows is a great idea, but that can also lead to nightmares and continuity. What's the word? Continuity, continuousness, because things are really different from venues sonically. And I just remember putting that together. We had all the performances we wanted, but the venues just sounded different, and there were different engineers in different cities, and all that headache was kind of gone on One Bad MF. I just had a great engineer record the show, and that was it. So, of course, we edited things in such a way to really tighten it up to make a 2-hour show become 75 minutes. But I think as far as ease of production, it's definitely preferable for me to just record one show and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, in 2 hours, your live record's done. So can't really complain about that.
Sure. Now, Marty, let me ask you about a former bandmate, and no, it's not from that band. Obviously, there was a lot of buzz and certainly a lot of love for the Jason Becker record that came out, late last year. Talk a little bit about, I'm sure you heard it, or I'm going to assume that you heard it. Talk a little bit about that, and, if you consider him to be an inspiration, not only as a former bandmate, but just as a creative guy that continues to beat every odd to be creative.
Oh, Jason Becker's my biggest inspiration by far. And obviously as a musician, but more so as a friend and a person and all that stuff. And he's making music that is giving so much joy to so many people. And, and it's not important that the people know what goes into making a record in anybody's case, but especially his case, because people will hear his story and think, oh my God, it's unbelievable that he's making this music. And it is, but that's not important. His story is not important. It's his music that is important and needs to be enjoyed on face value, because it's just absolutely, it's so beautiful and unique, and every note just drips Jason, regardless of who's involved with it, who's helping out on the process. Every single second of that stuff is what Jason's intention is, and it's just a joy that he continues to take the energy to make it for us, and that's what it really is all about. I mean, anybody who's making music is putting out a certain amount of energy and effort and care, and it's really a pain in the ass for anybody, to be straight with you. And because all we really care about, myself included, is the end user, what the person is going to get out of this when it's done. So that's why we care about all these little tiny details and just little things that we want to make sure that we get right. And Jason, he puts so much love and energy into what he does, and it comes out awesome. So I really am inspired by that when it comes time for me to do my music.
Sure. No question. Well, Marty, for now, I guess for you, people are going to have to go out and see you on tour. You're on tour. You begin in 2 weeks? You start touring, or a week? Is that right?
Start the tour on January. Excuse me. Start the tour on January 23rd in San Diego.
Okay.
And then we go all the way through February 24th. Last show is in Baltimore, and all of the information is available on martyfriedman.com and all over the place. And a lot of this stuff is pretty close to sold out, but I think there's tickets available all over the place. So please do come out, and really looking forward to showing off my band to you guys and playing some new stuff that we didn't do on the first leg of Wall of Sound tour. So looking forward to seeing everybody out there.
Absolutely, man. Well, Marty, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the newest record. Maybe tell us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to wrap this one up with?
All right. My newest record is called One BAD M.F. Live. And since you already played White Worm, why don't we go and show my little romantic side there and go into Undertow.
All right, let's do it right now. It is Undertow. It is Marty Friedman right here on your Classic Metal Show.